Hey, what's going on, guys? Before we get into today's video, just want to say a big trigger warning just because I feel like some people are probably going to take offense to some of the points that I'm going to make in today's video, but it's not meant to be offensive or shame anyone or blame anyone. So as you're listening to the stuff that I'm going to be talking about, today's topic of today's video, just remember to just chill out, and it's not that kind of video. I just want to discuss the topic of third-party kits. But first of all, just going to start off by saying that third-party is not really a good name for the kind of kits that we're going to be talking about, and it's something that I'm actually hoping to change with this video. But we're going to talk about where did the term come from, why, what does it mean, and well, really kind of in my personal opinion, I think the phrase really caught on years ago when we were talking about kits that were technically bootleg kits, but people didn't really feel comfortable calling the kits bootlegs. They wanted to call them something a little bit more palatable, and that's where the kind of third-party moniker really kind of took off. So whether the kits in question are technically bootleg or not is something we'll talk a little bit more later, but first I just want to define the term, exactly what third-party means first. And so the technical definition, or the dictionary definition, is a person or group besides the two parties primarily involved in a situation. So, okay, what does that really mean and how does it apply to the topic that we're talking about? Basically, the two parties, the two primary parties involved would be Bandai, the producer of goods, and the consumer of goods, us, would be the second party. So the third party would be one that either directly or indirectly works with both primary parties, which would be the producer and with us. So you can think about it sort of similar to like a third-party mouse that works with your Dell PC. That mouse is not something that's made by Dell, it's not something that's licensed by Dell, but it works with your Dell product, and it's something that we obviously consume. So that's a third-party product, and the three parties are clear. So thinking about it in that way, we could think of third-party kits as being a correct term for applying to kits that are like accessory kits, so like metal frame parts, effect parts, optional weapon or equipment parts that work together with Bandai products, but they're not something that's specifically a Bandai design or a Bandai licensed product. I'm obviously not a lawyer, but the only reason that I could think of these products would have any trouble legally or could be considered as a bootleg is if they were products that were specifically like a copy of Bandai's intellectual property design, or something that was featuring the actual like copywritten name or labeling, like the Gundam name is something that's a copywritten word that would be printed on the box or something. If that's not licensed, that would then fall under being a bootleg of either the design or intellectual property. So for example, something like a heavy weapon system for the new Gundam, if they put new Gundam on the box, or the design being, very similar in design, very, very close to the, Bandai's intellectual property of the design of what the heavy weapon system looks like. It's something that I guess could be argued, but I'm not exactly sure, again, not being a lawyer, how that would fall as to the legality of it. But I think generally, as long as it doesn't say Gundam on the box, and as long as it requires you to buy an official Bandai product in order to use that, for example, if you bought just the heavy weapon system set from like a third-party company that we're talking about, for example, and you wouldn't really be able to do anything with it without having an actual Bandai product to be able to use together with that. So with that defined, I think it's clear that models like the Martial Emperor, which I recently reviewed, or models from companies like Infinity Nova or In Era, clearly aren't third-party kits as we've defined right now. And so I think that certainly they take design cues from Gundam. They certainly have a lot of design inspiration that makes them look very similar to Gundam designs. And so because these are original designs, I'm proposing that we distinguish these type of model kits as something different from third-party and call them original mecha models, because they aren't third-party as we've defined. They aren't bootlegs being copies of intellectual property. There's something new, there's something original. So I feel like original mecha models is a better label to use for these type of kits. Now, what about the model kit designs that are a little bit more obviously based on Gundam designs and just kind of reinterpreted? Now, here's where it does kind of get a little bit tricky, maybe a little bit uncomfortable for some people. Now, to be clear, there is a difference between these model kits and just like the hard bootlegs, straight bootlegs that are just exactly one-to-one copy of Bandai products, even copying like the box art and everything like that. These are something that have existed for a long time, still exist, unfortunately. It's not something that I support, and I would recommend you guys not to support either. But when companies do make these reinterpretations of Gundam designs, they could absolutely be classified as bootlegs and probably do violate Bandai's intellectual property, but that's something that needs to be measured and something that needs to be decided by a lawyer, which again I'm not, so I wouldn't be able to say about the legality technically for that. But let's go ahead and zoom way back out again and consider where these models came from and what they mean for the mecha modeling community. So years and years ago, we had companies like Model Comprehend, Mechanicore, Dragon Momoko, Magic Toys, Sun Toys, Cute Cube, to name a few. There was a lot. And they were basically mostly seeking to fill a void left by Bandai in terms of what they were producing or not producing. Now, sometimes this meant making designs of kits that Bandai just hadn't touched yet. For example, we had a couple of different versions of the Kasi Gundam before we ever had Bandai make an official Kasi Gundam model. We had different larger or smaller interpretations of different Gundam designs, even SD Gundam designs from some companies, and we had, of course, the larger variations like what Mechanicore was doing, for example, larger interpretations, sort of like quasi-perfect grade versions of designs that maybe existed as Bandai HD or MG model kits. And then at the time there was also an influx of bust model kits, something that Bandai has never really done. And honestly, in my opinion, I think Bandai should absolutely do at some point. I think they would be awesome. I hope that they do. But pretty much everything that I'm talking about from that time was all bootlegs, as they very clearly did violate Bandai's intellectual property rights. But a lot of people started calling them third-party kits because they were just redesigned or in some way, and I think they just didn't want to sound so degenerate as to be buying, bootlegs. They wanted to call it something different just to make themselves feel a little bit more comfortable buying things that were, for all intents and purposes, bootleg model kits. And to be absolutely clear, I am definitely including myself in that category, as I did buy some of those model kits at the time. I'm not sure how many of them maybe I still own or not, maybe not too many, but yeah, myself included. But over time, we did see Bandai and the Chinese authorities occasionally start to crack down on these producers, and slowly these companies started to move towards making their own original mecha designs, and that's kind of what we see much more frequently now. Now, another point that I want to be clear on too is that I really don't think that Bandai pays that much attention to these type of third-party or bootleg kits or whatever, either in the past or present. And I don't believe, as is often claimed by some people online, that Bandai makes any kind of production decisions based on what these other companies are producing. Like if another company produces a Kasi Gundam model, then Bandai realizes, oh, we need to produce a Kasi Gundam model. I think it's coincidence and not anything related. But for now, it seems like the primary goal of the producers of these original mecha model kits is to fill one particular void that's being left in terms of what Bandai is producing, and that's the larger model kits that are more complex, namely like master grade type model kits, and that's primarily what we see a lot of from these original mecha models. As evidenced over the growing popularity of these kits over the last few years, as fans have been eating them up. Now that's fans outside of Japan, as it does seem that model kit enthusiasts within Japan are definitely sticking with a kind of Bandai-only philosophy for the time being, and there does seem to be a hesitation to embrace some of these original mecha model kits, even if they're not a violation of Bandai's intellectual property. But the issue that we may be running into now is that the market is perhaps getting too flooded with these new releases, as the time span between releases is getting shorter and shorter. Now, the great thing about these kits is that they do tend to be cheaper than what a model kit of similar size and complexity would cost, like from Bandai, for example. I think with so many coming out these days, consumers are going to be forced to be getting more picky and choosy about which ones they buy and which ones they don't, and some of these original mecha model producers are going to see some releases flop, whereas before, pretty much whatever they put out, they could be sure to sell very easily. We may not see that going forward with the market being more flooded. And at the end of the day, we as consumers make our voices heard based on how we choose to spend our money, what we choose to spend our money on. But again, I just want to make very clear that it's important to remember that Bandai is a very, very large company compared to some of these smaller model kit producers. And so they are just not very likely to be swayed, especially by the foreign market, which is still relatively small compared to their primary market, which is within Japan. And considering that whatever Bandai chooses to make sells really well still, as long as they're still selling everything that they're producing, they're probably not going to be too concerned about what people are buying or not. As long as they keep buying their products, they're going to keep doing well, and basically they're just going to keep doing fine no matter what. So unfortunately, we probably don't have too much sway. We can make our opinions heard if you have different events or things that you go to where like there's Bandai staff there. I mean, certainly communicate, your ideas and thoughts to them if you have the opportunity to. But for now, these small startups selling original mecha models do seem to be doing very well, and I would expect that they will continue to grow as a niche market amongst the larger mecha modeling enthusiast community. But I'm interested to know what you guys think. What in particular original mecha model kits have you built and have you enjoyed? Or if you haven't built one yet, maybe let me know why not. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. As always, guys, if you want to check out some of the kits for yourself, you can check out some of the original mecha model kits as well as some of the third-party kits, which again, I would say is more kind of like the accessory type kits. We've got a lot of that stuff available on the website in the video description below for USA Gundam Store. If you're in the US, of course, you can shop online there. As always, guys, thank you so much for your support, leaving a like, making sure that you're subscribed. I really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed today's video today, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.